What up? What up? What up? Thank you
Hello,
for having
hello.
us.
Thank you very much for having us on your show.
Yes, thank you for being here. We're so excited to get to know you guys, and it kind of feels like an awkward first date. Hi.
An
Exactly.
awkward first double date.
Right? Right?
Oh man, that's hilarious.
No. So, all right. So, how do you guys know each other? Let's just kind of start there.
So it all begins at the gym. We were playing in a basketball league together, and then we haven't told this story in a while, Mike. But we used
I
to
know
tell
where this is
he
going.
looks
I know where
scared.
this is going.
So we used to tell these people the story all the time. And they'd be like, "Are you guys like gay or what's going on here?" But we used to always tell people that we met and we started having hot tub conversations.
At
And
like
then
midnight.
at midnight,
Yeah.
we had hot tub conversations, and that's really how we got to know each other.
I can't
Yeah.
think of a better way to get to know someone, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. There's a certain level of intimacy that you get in the hot tub or just at the gym in general. I met
Absolutely.
Melissa at the gym in the gym locker room, and
Yeah.
she had a very colorful nickname until she actually introduced herself to me. So,
Oh man, that's hilarious.
All right,
That's
that's awesome. So you guys met I'm just going to say steamy locker room or steamy
Oh,
sauna,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then, so how did it transform from there or evolve from there?
Yeah, so it all started with those hot tub conversations. So we would invite the other person. We'd be like, hey, you want to come to the hot tub at like 11 or 12 at night? And we would have a lot of vulnerable and personal conversations where we talk about a lot of our insecurities, self-doubts. And we found that a lot of them were the same. Like the details were different, but the underlying theme was the same. And
Yeah.
from there, we really started building a lot of trust with each other, a lot of vulnerability with each other. And that kind of built the foundation of even right now of our relationship.
Yeah. And then kind of from there, after our gym sessions, one day we met up at Costco, and this is how the business started. And we were just sitting there eating pizza, and we were about to leave, and Mike was like, "Oh, hey, by the way, I have this bar in San Francisco that really needs help. They just lost their manager, and you've been in the restaurant industry, so like, could you help them out?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure, man. Like, I'd love to do that." And to get out to San Francisco, they're like, "We need to see a proof of concept." And Mike, tell them about our proof of
Yeah,
concept.
so we were like, oh, we'll go do, we'll go do like a bar rescue for a few of the bars around Atlanta, like, how
Yeah.
hard could it be? And so, we met up at a few different restaurants and stuff, tried to pitch them our illustrious services at that time, and it didn't go well, but somehow, some way, we kept getting beat in the head, and we just decided we wanted to keep getting beat in the head and make it
Yeah.
a business rather than a project.
So I'm curious, what was it about the restaurant industry that really drew you both to work in that?
Yeah, so I actually spent about 11 years in the restaurant industry, from managing restaurants and then opening restaurants. That was all my background. And Mike went to college for entrepreneurship at Babson. We're like, let's combine our skills of entrepreneurship in the restaurant industry and kind of take it from there. And it was a tragedy.
Yeah.
so why do you say it was a tragedy, though? It sounds like there's some good stuff that came out of it, right?
Oh, definitely. So for
Yeah.
the first year, we were trying to put a square peg into a round hole by being restaurant consultants. And
Yeah.
we thought, like with my business background, with Andrew's knowledge, like we could knock this out of the park. And so we were talking about doing anything from like menu profitability reports, kitchen redesigns, menu refreshes, a whole bunch of different things. And then like data analytics and all these other different things. And so for a year, we were trying to pitch these to restaurant owners, and no one cared about them. Nobody cared. We did not make a single dollar from restaurant consulting for an entire year.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of that year, we pivoted, and we were initially just trying to get in front of the restaurant owners. So like, hey, we'll do like free food photo shoots for them. Then when we're delivering the photos, we can say, hey, by the way, we do this. And we realized for like the last 3 months of that year, the only thing they cared about was the photos and the content we were giving them. rather than us trying to pitch consulting services. So it took us about 3 months of like seeing that. They were like, hey, let's stop with this consulting stuff and go full time with the content creation and the social media advertising.
So it sounds like when you started the consulting, that wasn't part of what you were doing at the time. It sounds like you got that at the tail end before you pivoted. Is that right?
So, yeah, correct.
Okay. So how did you get started on the photography and content creation for the businesses?
Oh man, it was rough. It was rough.
It was rough. So I had a DSLR camera I had never used before, and we saw like a lot of the content these restaurants would have on social media, and I mean they look pretty bad. So we're like, hey, we can do better than that. So we went in and we tried to use the DSLR camera. I didn't even know how to do any of the settings. So we ended up just using our phone camera because it does a lot of the work for you.
Yeah.
And then so one of us would be holding the DSLR camera when the owner would walk by and like snapping pictures with it and making this. The other one is with the phone, like, oh, we're just getting behind the scenes content, but actually getting the real photos, and we portray them as like coming from.
I love that. I love that. But I mean, how creative to think outside of the box, right?
Yeah. And after about 3 months of that, we're like, all right, we got to learn this new camera. And man, I'll give it to Mike, man. He spent thousands upon thousands of hours of learning different lighting, different styles of shoots, learned how to use the camera. Literally, we didn't know how to use the camera at all. And so it was just a really cool to see and to tell that story and relive that, because it was rough to figure it out. But
so Mike, what has been a highlight of your learning experience with photography?
I think the biggest highlight, I tell this to my friends and family when we talk about this, is the consistency, like that constant self-improvement, because I feel like these are the most satisfying and happy years I've had in my life so far, because I'm constantly learning. I can constantly look back, every 3 months, every 2 months, and be like, I'm better than I was before. I have more skills than I had before. I'm getting close to whatever level I'm trying to get to. So I think that consistency has never been like I learned one thing and that was the holy grail of knowledge. It always is like I learned one thing and I'm like, oh, this is the holy grail of knowledge. 3 months later, I'm like, oh, that's kind of amateurish, or it's just a tool in the tool belt, one or the other. So it was never like one big thing. It was just like the continuous process over 18, 20 something months where, a lot of times we don't have that opportunity to learn one thing for that long and that consistently.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. So based on your website, Mike, you're more of the creative one, right? In terms of, are you the one that's taking the pictures? And then Andrew, I mean, how would each of you define your roles within Cork Bros?
Yeah, so Mike handles 95% of the content, and the only content that I capture is content of Mike.
You're his paparazzi, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I'm always on my phone taking photos of him taking photos, and that's my job when we're at photo shoots.
Well, you do.
Yeah, so I do a lot of the social media. So come up with the different ideas. Like we did a series called Uncorked, where we tried to find the best restaurant in the Atlanta area and brought food influencers in. And then, Mike figured out a way to capture it on camera and turn it into a little mini series. So I handle more of like, hey, this is kind of the direction we're going with the business. And then Mike's like, all right, here's the best way to capture it. I would say that's the best way to describe what we do.
Yeah, and Andrew, I don't know why he's not mentioning this. This is a huge part of his job description, but he does a lot of the social media strategy. So we have clients where we run their social media accounts. Some of them are pretty much their marketing department, and that's primarily Andrew, who's running the day-to-day of that, the strategy of that, doing the research to see what we need to be doing with those brands and all of that.
So then it sounds like the research that you were doing to promote yourself, you've now been able to use that as a skill set to actually provide more value to your clients, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, it's been the flip. Sometimes it's easier when you're a content creator and a business person to help other people in their business. So we were getting really good at helping build other people's businesses. And then Mike and I sat down one day, we're like, why are we not doing the same things that we're doing for other people's businesses for ourselves? Because at the end of the day, all these other clients, they could come and go. The only constant thing is our business and our brand. So let's focus our energy on building our brand and use all these other strategies that we're using on other people for ourselves.
That makes a lot of sense of just once you finally realize, hey, we're doing good stuff here. Why
Yeah.
won't we do it for ourselves? And we talked about this last week, and it's hard to promote yourselves. Like, do you guys get uncomfortable with that, or got any tips?
I think a big thing, and what kind of caused us to not do it for a bit was it's kind of like when you have like this. If you're just a chef at a restaurant, a lot of times they come back home and they eat mac and cheese and stuff. They're not thinking about putting all those skills to their own benefit. And I think that's what a lot of people in a lot of different industries kind of go through. But when you're talking about a branding, it's imperative that you do it for yourself. And one thing you just got to get past is like you're behind the camera, you're behind creating the content or whatever. You're doing it for people, and you have to remember, hey, I'm doing it for people. But even if I'm at a shoot, I need to turn the camera around and do it for myself. At least take a few photos or like a 1-minute video of just showing people that I'm here and I'm doing this.
Yeah, I think one of the other big things is drowning out the outside noise. So a lot of times at the beginning we're posting, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, what is my family thinking? What are my friends thinking? Am I posting too much? Is this content good enough for them? What about other businesses? What are they thinking? And then it just got to a point where I was trying to please so many people. I'm just like, man, I'm going to create content and post content that we love and that we're passionate about. And those people could come find us and we'll reach them. I'm not going to please every single follower that we have. And so I think that's a big one, is just drowning out what people think. Once you could do that, you could have a clear mind to just post whatever you want to post, and you're not worried about what other people are thinking.
Absolutely. And, with what you're saying, Andrew, I hear a lot of Gary Vee in that one. So I need to ask, are you the Gary Vee fanatic, or is it Mike?
Man, I think I started it, but Mike and I both, that changed our business. In May of last year, we started watching Gary Vee and we went for it. And then it was funny. We actually went to, he was speaking in Alabama, and, he does his Q&A sections, and Mike stood up and asked a question. I'm like, Mike, ask for a picture. He's like, what? No. Like, I was like, dude, he always says yes, ask for a picture. And then he stands up, he asks a great question, and then he's like, can we get a picture too? And we got a picture on the stage with Gary Vee.
Oh, that's so
we
awesome.
got to meet him. Yeah, it was fantastic.
That sounds really cool. I'm the one that geeks out on this stuff, and Melissa's like,
I tolerate it.
What do you like about it? What do you like about Gary Vee?
You know what? I've always liked entrepreneurs, and I think that that's part of why I like this opportunity of being able to talk to entrepreneurs, because I think that there's so much bravery in what you do, and really putting yourself out there and knowing, hey, you know what? That first concept that you had about restaurant consultant, well, it didn't quite pan out, but you still have that drive. You don't just give up on it. And I think some people will maybe try one business and be like, no, that wasn't for me, and they'll give up. But entrepreneurs, and like Gary Vee, he's like, you're not failing, you're just trying some more. And all of those things that you tried in the past are going to be informative and help you in the future. And so that's part of what I really like about him. I think he's got a lot of good positive content. I know he can be a little extreme at times, but I'm like, that's okay. I'll still listen to him.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Gary Vee is fantastic. We love Gary Vee.
We'll give him a shout out.
Exactly. Gary Vee, come post us on your page, man.
City had forwarded me that article from Voyage ATL, and it was just talking about some of the obstacles that you had to go through in order to kind of make that shift from restaurant consultancy to digital marketing creation. What kind of obstacles or things did you have to overcome in order to make that transition?
Man, I think go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You start. I got you after.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that for me personally we just were not making any money. And I had to overcome the obstacle of I almost got evicted twice. I was working at Uber and I was driving. So my schedule was 4 a.m., wake up, go to Starbucks, then meet for the business from like 10 to 5, and then drive Uber from like 5 or 6 to like 9 or 10 at night just to get by.
Yeah, when he says go to Starbucks, he's not getting a latte. He's go work.
I was
at
working.
Starbucks.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
working at
wow.
Starbucks. And so, man, I reached a depression. I reached a point where it was just like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. Like, why am I doing this? And so I remember Mike and I met at Starbucks one day. I was like, hey, man, we got 3 months. And if we do not make any money, or like if I can't make a salary that lets me stop working at Starbucks or driving for Uber, I can't do it anymore. I'm literally like killing myself. And so it was at that point, our feet were to the fire and we're like, all right, we got to make it happen because we believe in what we're doing. We believe in each other. We just got to figure it out. So I think it was that moment where we really just started to hone in the content creation. What were you going to say, Mike?
No, I think that was a big thing. I think that was one of the biggest moments in our business. We met at Starbucks there because, as a business and as an entrepreneur, a lot of times when you're first starting out, you want to, like, ideally, you don't want to be focused on the money you're making. You want to be focused on the skills you're building, the network you're building, all those different things.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you are a business, and every business needs financial validation, or else, it's just a whimsical idea.
Yeah.
So that was our point where we were like, all right, and I think also what happened is before that moment, we were really soft. Like we were extremely soft when we'd go try to pitch our services or try to express our value to people. We were just kind of like, no, please, like listen to us, like all those different things. That's an exaggerated form, but
pleading, right?
Yeah, we're more like pleading and hoping they would do us a favor by accepting the value. And by that point, we did have value we could bring to people. Yeah. So I think after that, once we put our feet to the fire from that meeting, is when we finally got some fight and some edge in it. And we're like, we are bringing value and we're going to demand our value. And, some people are going to say no, but some people are also going to say yes. And one of the beautiful things that happened is once we started demanding our value, because before we were pleading, we're just hoping people would come. So we're like asking them for ridiculously low prices, or we're giving them ridiculously low prices for our services and stuff. And that is also something that makes people not want to work with you. Because if someone wants to go get a photo shoot and they're like, this is my best dish at my restaurant. We just brought in a crazy chef to do this. I want to get the best photo shoot. And you're like, hey, I'll do it for $50 or $100. They're like, that's not going to be a great photo. Usually people charge, triple or 5 times that much for this. So, so that was one thing where we finally started demanding our value and we started to get an edge and we weren't so soft with how we interacted with other people.
Yeah.
It sounds like when you're talking about demanding your value, it sounds like you had to have an internal mind shift to be able to do that. Can you guys talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. Yeah. I think at that point, we weren't demanding value anywhere in our lives. The relationships we were in at the time, the business, physical health, like we were given the bare minimum and hoping for a big result. So it came when I just took a survey of my life. All right, my relationship, like this probably isn't benefiting me right now or helping me become a better person or help me in the business, and the business isn't helping the relationship. So I had to make the tough decision to break up with my girlfriend at that point. And I made some other tough decisions. I stopped working at Starbucks and I started spending more time on the business. And then I started believing in myself. Before I was like, I think I could do this or whatever. But like sometimes, I was just, I don't know. It was tough, man. It was tough to overcome, but I just started believing in myself. And then I started just living a better life, and everything started to come after that. What would you say, Mike?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it was it's kind of like the age-old question. If you're providing a service, how much do you charge for the service? If it's a product, you can figure out your costs and all these different things. But a service, like you're like, it's really just my time and the skills I've built up. So for us, it was kind of scary. It was like trying to touch a hot stove where you're just trying to like just touch it really quickly. So you're just providing, you're just saying, at first we are just like, hey, we're just going to charge a little bit because we didn't really want to put our hand on the stove because we were scared it was going to burn us. And we thought it would be rude to try to demand more money for our services. But then we finally committed. We said, this stove isn't going to burn us. Let's put our hand fully on it. And that's when we started to see results, when we stopped being scared with that initial interaction.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Because I mean, really, it took you guys that step of really just putting your hands in, going all in and believing in yourself to really start seeing that change.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So
Yeah,
Andrew,
Thank you.
Andrew, you had mentioned kind of like the people around you have been like advocates for you or champions. Who would each of you say are your biggest advocates or champions for you on this journey?
I would say my parents, man. My parents have done an absolutely phenomenal job supporting me. And, you know, I didn't go to college, and so they never put pressure on me or never shamed me for not going to college. They always believed in what I was doing and knew that, you know, I'd just work as hard as possible to get it done. And so my parents have been super, super supportive through it all. And then honestly, you know, it's so weird. I don't know if you guys have experienced this with the podcast, but you have like your immediate family support you and your friends like right when you start off, and they're like, oh, that's awesome, something new. And then as you get into it, if you're not a millionaire in 3 months, that support just kind of like starts to taper off. And so some of our biggest supporters are people that we've met early on in our journey and have stuck with us that we didn't know before.
That's awesome.
Melissa, you were laughing.
I'm laughing because this morning I was looking at our pod's Facebook page and I'm like, my mother doesn't even follow our page. I was like, how rude.
Yeah.
Well, our running joke when we started was like, look, our one listener, your mom, is probably going to be okay, but like, how do we expand beyond the, you know, your
beyond
mom?
my mom, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm also curious. It sounds like you two work so well with each other. So what do you believe helps foster that collaboration and creativity between the two of you?
I think it all started with the
came prepared.
With the hot tub. It all started with the hot tub.
It did.
That because like I can't overstate how important those vulnerable conversations were. Those are conversations I'm pretty sure Andrew and I were saying we had never had with anybody else in our lives, not girlfriends, family, whoever. Like it was very unique conversations about extremely vulnerable stuff for us that built a mutual respect between us and also a mutual understanding. And I think another big thing for both of us is that we're both very level-headed. So none of us are going to blow up at the other person. So even in our interactions, there's a base level of respect where, you know, there's not going to be like a hot-headed moment where someone's going to say something they don't mean or something, you know, they're not going to word it wrong. We're really intentional with the way we communicate with each other. And I think that's like a natural way that we are, but also from like the foundation we built the relationship with.
Yeah, and I think over time we've just built that trust. And it's funny, it happened early on in the business too, but I never questioned Mike's intent behind or his integrity behind anything. I knew he always wanted what's best for us and best for the business. And you know, once you can reach that with someone else, it's just so freeing because Mike never micromanaged me and I never micromanage Mike. We just trust that the other person is going to do what they say they're going to do. And, you know, it's just been great.
That's awesome. Because I think there's a lot of, right now, one of the big buzzwords is vulnerability, right? Like I know we've talked about it. We've talked about it on our podcast before. And it is because it does get you to that magic place of just having this connection that you wouldn't have before. I mean, the fact that you didn't even have these kinds of vulnerable conversations with potential partners, like that speaks a lot of where you're at. You know, maybe going forward, you'll see the benefits of that with other relationships. So that's really awesome. Thank you guys for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing. Go ahead. I was just saying another thing that we talk about often on the podcast too is about small wins, because anytime we make changes in our lives, we're thinking, okay, and until I make my first million, I'm not going to consider myself success.
Yeah.
But, even just, like your first sale, right? When you
Yeah.
started to brand yourself the way that you should be, right? When you started to add value to your work or your perceived value, right?
Yeah.
So we often talk about celebrating those small wins. And so I'm curious, how do each of you, or what do each of you do to celebrate those small wins?
Definitely. So for me, personally, I celebrate a lot with my wife. And so, one big, small, like people would say is a small win, but to us it's astronomical, is we were just able to give back 70 plus backpacks and school supplies to kids in the greater local Atlanta area who were struggling during COVID and, having a rough year. And we've always wanted to give back, and we always said we want to. And we had a tragedy at the beginning of our business trying to give back to people. It just didn't work well, but we finally, we're 2.5, almost 3 years into our business, and we're now able to give back to the community in a big way and make an impact. And how I celebrated was just, my wife came to the event and had a good time and was hanging out with the kids. And then that weekend we went, and all of us went on a boat, and we rented a boat and celebrated that way. So I think it's super important to celebrate all those small wins, because if you don't, you just come dissatisfied with everything in life until you get that car, make that first 100 million, or buy
Right?
your house. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think one great thing Andrew and I do is every Monday we start off the week with a strategy session. And so what we do to start off the strategy session is we'll break down, how effective we were with what we wanted to accomplish the week before and the months before. And I mean, it's small things that we'll just dap each other up. We're like, let's go. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a genuine excitement for these small wins that come in. I mean, the big ones are great too, but it's like the weekly wins that come in, or the daily wins that come in. We'll just be super excited, or we'll text each other if something happens. And then, half of our texts will just be let's go, man, a bunch of exclamation marks and some emojis and stuff. And I think that's great, because one big thing we always say is that no one understands the process to even get those small wins the way we do. They don't even come close to understanding what went into, someone hitting us up being like, hey, we want, to send you a shirt so you can wear it for your Frisky Freestyle Friday and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, so trust me, I have questions on that.
Oh yeah, I love it. So I think just one of the biggest ways for the smallest of wins, Andrew and I were always and the thing is, we always hype each other up and build each other up. So Andrew is always hyping me up, and then I'm always trying to hype Andrew up and all that stuff, and just make sure that they feel appreciated and that we see what the other person is doing.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. Yeah. I love the mutual respect and
Admiration.
celebration. Yeah. Really a lot of admiration for one another. Which, it's kind of rare to see. I appreciate that you guys are sharing this, because I just don't see a lot of guys, talking about how awesome their best friend is. I mean,
or the fact that they met them in a hot tub.
Yeah. No, exactly. And again, it really does lead back to those hot tub sessions. We just became comfortable from that point on. And, when I was carrying Mike on the basketball court, he would always say, wow, man, you're so great. Thank you. And so I felt like I just had to reciprocate it from that.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Oh, man.
One question I did also have about your work is, so what is it about your work that gives each of you the greatest sense of pride and purpose?
Now, I can't remember the last day in this business I've actually worked. Work to me kind of has a negative connotation. A lot of people are like, all right, I got to go to work or things like this. I've just been living for the past 2 years with this business. And I think the greatest thing is that we stuck through it when a lot of people would have given up. you know, we couldn't figure out the restaurant consulting. We weren't making any money, but we just kept going. And I think that's the greatest thing that's happened. The business is one of the greatest things besides my wife that has ever happened to me, because you know, we could have given up, we could have stopped, but we've just kept going. And you know, just have a lot of pride with the business that I just want to see it succeed, not just for ourselves, but, you know, we're really passionate about building, helping out the local community and different things like that. And so we want to succeed so we could also help others as well.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I think the biggest thing for me is similar, the consistency and continuity. It was like the same thing when I answered the learning question. Just knowing that we've been consistent and we've been continuous with what we're doing and how we're growing and like the heights we're getting to, because there's no astronomical steps we're making here. We're not making big leaps, but we are making progress. And I mean, that's an amazing thing. Like we're both in our, we're both before 30. So we're like, hey, we have plenty of time to get to where we need to get to. Like, we don't need to be, you know, millionaires right now. We just need to be doing something that's fun, that's engaging, that's challenging us, and that, you know, has potential to grow.
Absolutely. And I mean, don't sell yourself short. It's like 7 backpacks to be able to give out in your community. That's huge.
Yeah.
So what is it, do you think, that drives you guys to want to make sure that you are giving back to your community and being able to do it so early?
I think
go ahead.
Go ahead, Andrew. No, you got it.
All right. So I think the two things that really drive me is, you know, I was adopted, so I don't know my birth mom or dad, but I'm so grateful for the parents that adopted me and gave me the life that they've given me. And so I'm so thankful for life. I want to help other people find that same joy and passion in their life, no matter what situation they're in. So that's one. And then two is all this struggles I've been through financially. I made a promise to myself when I was just down in there, to like, I'm talking days I couldn't even get out of bed because I was so like shaking with fear, anxiety, depression, all those things. And like, there were days I had to get up and go drive for Uber so I could make money so I could have breakfast. Like, that's how it was. I just made a promise, like, if I get out of this, anytime I have a little extra, not when we're millionaires, we'll start giving back. But if we just have a small amount of money to give back, we just give back. Megan and I, my wife, have a giving fund, and we put money in there every single time we get paid. And it's little things like, there's a girl who's having a tough day at Sonic. We could just tell in the drive-through, and we just handed her like $50, and she just lit up. And you know, with our stimulus checks, we gave away 10% to a local pop bar, popsicle place, to get other people popsicles, not even for ourselves. And so after being that low, I'm like, I will help anyone I can with whatever I can. So I think that's really what drives me.
Definitely. I think one big thing from just growing up, my mom, she would always give as she could. My family's from West Africa, so a huge part of that culture, and a huge part of immigrant culture is sending money back, because the dollar holds so much more weight than the local currency. Sending money back to your family, but not just my family. She would, like, I remember there's an orphanage in Liberia where she would send money back to a lot of the kids. When we would visit Liberia, she would do so much. I mean, I was a kid and just observing this. And one thing she's always told me is that, you know, when you, like, if you want to get something, give something. You know, don't just be focused on yourself, like, give, and then the world will bring it back. And one thing we heard early in our business is that you can't just keep taking and taking and taking from the universe. You have to give stuff back to it. And so, like, Andrew and I, you know, we want to take stuff from the universe as we grow our business, but, you know, it like, we've seen it many times. We'll give, and then someone will hit us up and be like, hey, we have this big job for you or something. And so it's not always like focused on like, hey, let's give so we can get something, but just knowing that, you know, like, there's some sort of balance in this world. Like, I don't know exactly what it is, but there's some sort of balance. And there's a lot of people who are trying to keep it out of balance. And I don't want to be a part of that, especially as a business owner.
So it sounds like the focus then isn't You know, because you'll see this on some businesses where all they'll focus on is the return on investment. Well, what am I going to get out of this? Right. It doesn't sound like that's where it's coming from you guys. It really is to have that, like Mike was saying, balance in the universe.
Yeah.
And because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And like just yesterday, there's a food pantry that started when coronavirus hit, and their goal is to serve 10 families in the greater Atlanta area, and they've served over 10,000 people since March, and they're in a public space now, like an old shopping center, and then they have people come in and, you know, they give them fruits, veggies, and supplies for their house and different meals. And they asked us like, hey, we really want to make a video to get the word out so we can help more people. And we didn't even ask any questions or what are we going to get out of it. We just said, yes, we'll do the video. We'll show up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, which is a miracle from God that Mike got up that early. And then we didn't even ask questions. We just did it because it's the right thing to do, you know?
Very, very nice. I understand the morning struggles.
Oh yeah.
You know, having been a former night owl, and now I'm like, people do things in the morning.
Yeah.
All right, I guess I'll do that too.
Yeah.
No, awesome. Okay, do you want to do the reflection questions?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So we'll go ahead and ask you guys the signature questions in, and we'll see where it goes. So reflecting back, what would you tell your younger self?
Go ahead, Mike. I've been answering first all the time.
Wait, how young are we talking?
You decide.
Okay, I decide. All right. Going back, what would I tell my younger self? I would tell my younger self to learn. Like, you know, not necessarily inside the classroom because that's whatever it is, but to learn, to gain skills, because I think, as I told you, like I feel the most fulfilled I have ever felt right now. And I think there's so many skills that at any age you can learn, from your teens, early 20s, all these different things that are going to be insanely valuable in your life, but just also insanely valuable for your mental health. You're going to feel great. You're going to feel useful. You're going to feel like you have purpose in the world as you learn those skills.
Yeah, I would say for myself, it would be drown out the outside noise. So I went to 9 schools in 12 years. I've lived in 21 different places. I'm 28 years old. And so I always used to, instead to try and learn in school, I just tried to fit in. I tried to fit into a mold so I could have friends when I moved around. And I would just tell myself, just be myself and drown out what other people think. Because years and years and years of people pleasing just brought me a lot of sadness and anxiety and stress and things like that. So I'd say drown out the outside noise and never change who you are.
Those are both really powerful answers. Thank you. So our second one is looking forward. What is one wish that you have for yourself or for Cork Bros Studios on your current journey?
One wish. What you got, Mike?
This reminds me of the Ray J song. If I had one. I guess my biggest wish, because what we've seen with the Cork Bros is, you know, every 6 months our focus kind of shifts, whether it's drastically or just a little bit, is for us to just keep going, to keep pushing through. Challenges always are coming. We had to overcome, you know, some challenges even in the past couple months. But for us to keep going and pushing through, because if we do, I know we're going to continue to build something great. And I don't know exactly what the form of that will be, but, you know, it'll be something that I enjoy to be a part of.
Yeah, I think my one wish is to become a national brand. So we're really focusing on this next 6 months to brand ourselves. And I just don't want to be known in Atlanta, but throughout the whole US and internationally even. And not just for the recognition and to pump ourselves up. That stuff doesn't really mean anything to me. But I feel like we have a good story and we could help a lot of people with our story and our journey. And, you know, to have that platform like a Gary Vee who could travel all around and talk to different people, I would say becoming a national brand would mean a lot to me and our business.
We want to hear from you. What stuck out to you about Mike and Andrew's journey? Let us know on our Facebook group, Pivotal Moments HQ. You can also follow the Cork Bros on Instagram at the Cork Bros or visit their website, corkbrosstudios.com. We'll have all these links on our website at pivotalmomentshq.com. We want to thank our producer and music director, Ron Johnson. This has been an Astronomicus DMR production. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's never too late and you're right on time.